There's a saying that goes, your network determines your net worth. The purpose of our show is to increase your personal database of people, facts, and information about audio and its associated topics. In the end, we'll all be better for having traveled this road together. For the next 45 minutes, we're going to introduce you to some of our friends, as well as meet some new ones. We'll see products and discuss concepts as best we can to gain a better understanding of how our connection to audio literally links us with one another. Audio brings us together and touches all of our lives in one form or another on a daily basis. We're also going to hear from you. Your voice is important to us, and we hope that you as viewers learn everything every time we get together. We want to hear from you and give you a chance to ask any audio-related questions that you might have. All you need to do is use the hashtag EverythingAudio on Facebook or Twitter. That's EverythingAudio on Facebook or Twitter. Coming to you live from the YouTube space Los Angeles, this is Everything Audio. Hi, I'm your host, Dave Hampton. Waves and I wanted to welcome you to Everything Audio. Our good friends at Waves have been busy developing new technology for many facets of our lives. They thought it would be nice to have a show that brings together many of the communities that they serve. The result is a very special form of what we like to call edutainment. Our goal is that you get access, exposure, information, and relationship. Today, we're going to be talking about perception as it relates to the quality audio of today. That's and that's how it affects what we do as creators and, of course, as audio consumers. Excuse me. Later on in the show, we're going to be giving away Adele XPS 13 Ultrabook, so make sure you stay tuned for your chance to win. As an engineer who's been involved in all kinds of productions throughout the world, I was really excited and impressed by the ability to bring this show to you from a place like YouTube Space Los Angeles, which is our home base. This is the largest facility of its kind, and we are so totally self-contained with our crew, and the facility supports our production staff with state-of-the-art studios, control rooms, edit facilities, and equipment. Today on our show, we'll be talking to some of the most talented people in the industry. These are some of the names that you guys need to know. Grammy Award-winning mixer extraordinaire Andrew Scheps is here with us. For those of you that don't know Andrew, he's worked with the biggest names out there, and all across from every spectrum of music, bouncing from rockers like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Black Sabbath, Metallica, and artists like Adele, Lana Del Rey, and even working with Jay-Z. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Excuse my reading. Iconic mixing engineer JJP is also here, Jack Joseph Puig, commonly known as JJP. He has multiple Grammy Awards for his work with John Mayer, Sheryl Crow, Fergie, the Black Eyed Peas, U2, Goo Goo Dolls, and many others. Although his reputation precedes him as an engineer and producer, what some of you might not know is that he's also Director of Creative Innovation for Waves Consumer Division. He's taken his expertise to the manufacturing community, helping to transform the new audio products that you're seeing now with some of the latest features. Jack, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, and thank you also for having me here today.
Thank you very much for being here. Our final guest comes to us from the world of electronic music. Dave Audé has 99 #1 hit singles on the Billboard Club chart. His hit Let It Go marks the Mixmaster's latest chart topper as a producer and remixer. He's a modern digital tastemaker, and what I like to think represents one of the ways a record producer looks in 2014. I'd like to welcome EDM All-Star Dave Audé to the panel today.
Glad to be here, Dave.
Thank you so much. Our topic for today is the quality of audio. And what I'd like to do is start with Andrew. You know, many people are familiar with your work and your engineering, but lately you've been doing a lot of presentations on audio quality. And I wanted to just ask you, just to start, what was it that made you realize that this particular topic needed a conversation? What was it that was going on?
Well, I mean, for my whole career, obviously, I've spent a lot of my energy trying to make the records I work on sound great, and that can mean a million different things. But basically, just to have the audio quality of the product that I make be as good as I can make it, whether that's about audiophile type quality or whether it's just about the way it feels. But in the last few years, after starting a label and also just looking at the fact that when I started we had maybe 3 viable consumer formats, now we're up to maybe 20. Every streaming service has their own format that they're streaming in, and it changes all the time. That how the records I was making and everybody was making got to the consumer turned into this very sort of convoluted chain that not a lot of people understood. So what I've been doing is putting together just basically charts of what sample rate and what file type all of the different streaming services are using, what are best practices for preparing your masters, so that no matter what your record sounds like, it sounds the same when somebody listens at home, as opposed to them hearing something that you didn't intend.
Cool, cool, cool. Jack, one of the questions I wanted to ask you is many people know your success as a producer and engineer, in particular with quality audio issue. Was it any particular project that you were working on that made you realize that audio was changing and it needed a new focus?
Sure, there was a project, but I think I'd start off by saying that if we look at it at this as beginning of this is analog mobility, let's call it analog mobility or analog portability, right? Starting with the transistor radio, moving to the portable cassette player, and the list goes on. The truth is that was actually a substandard experience that was accepted by pop culture, totally because it was seen as a secondary listening experience. No one saw that as a primary experience. As the Industrial Revolution has died, and of course digital revolution is upon us now, we're in a renaissance, that meant that mobility came along, right? Portable, I should say digital mobility came along. So analog was gone, but with mobility came software as well as hardware. So now we have 2 issues to deal with. And the combination of those 2 and it moving to becoming the primary way people wanted to listen, not the secondary. Before, as you know, with the analog, right, it was a secondary. Now it's a primary way people want to listen. That was when the bell rang for me. And in particular, when Lady Gaga, as well as No Doubt, showed me what it sounded like on a mobility device, that was the beginning of me saying, I've got to get in this and do my best to take my talents and my abilities to actually turn this around and pay attention to these issues that we have.
That's great. That's great. Dave Audé, as a DJ, do you find your sense of things helps you in production, your DJ instincts, do you find that helps you as you move into production? And then how do you really look at the quality audio issue?
Well, every DJ, first of all, every guy producing dance music or anything electronic should have a DJ, if they're not a DJ, with them in the studio, because they're going to help you produce some great music. They're the guys that know what's working on the dance floor, what's not working. So if you're not a DJ, it's good to find a DJ and get them in the studio with you, because they're going to help you translate something that's going to work on the dance floor. And that's your ultimate goal when you're making dance music. You want stuff to not just work in the studio, you want it to work in the clubs or in the festivals. So, and in regards to the state of audio today and how I'm dealing with that, everybody sort of in EDM, I think, is fighting each other to make the loudest record possible. It's funny, if you listen to all the records on Beatport, everything is super, super loud, compressed, limited. And the guys making records aren't necessarily schooled or educated in necessarily how to use compressors or how to use limiters. So they're just kids in their bedrooms, throwing every plug-in they possibly can on the master bus or inserting them on the channels even. I mean, just as much as they possibly can and just using their ears, which is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. So I think it's important to get producers, young producers and engineers and DJs a little more educated so they can kind of learn what these things do rather than just throw everything in their session and kind of go that way, which is a good thing because they're using their ears. But I think it'd be good if we had a little more education for the youth so they actually kind of sort of knew what they were doing.
Well, like to speak to that for a second. Just I think that is the key part of all of this, is there is education where it used to be to work in a studio, you had to know things. And obviously making records, even if it's purely electronic, there is so much technology involved and physics involved and things that are not necessarily something everybody knows. But now the tools are in everybody's hands. And on the consumer end, you used to have a couple of choices of how you would listen to something. Now you can find it in 50 different places, and it may or may not even be done from a master. It might be transcoded. There are a lot of things where I think there's education that you didn't even need to used to do on the consumer end in terms of where people are getting their music, and in the production end for knowing what the tools are that people are using, because they're everywhere, which is awesome. That democratization is incredible. But at the same time, to do that with absolutely no basis for the technologies you're using, I think can be not dangerous, but it doesn't lead to, higher quality audio.
Agreed. I'm just, constantly looking for, it's also cool that companies like Waves have, newer plugins that aren't necessarily super deep. There's things with, some of Jack's plugs that, just have basic tools, basic bass, high compression, or, you don't have to really be super technical to use some of these plugins, which is cool.
That's great. That's great. Something I think a lot of the viewers want to know is, especially with the new devices we're delivering to, laptops, cell phones, handhelds, and mastering for iTunes and all these other things. How has that changed your workflow, each of you? If you feel free enough to talk about it, if you could talk about how that's changed your workflow, considering that this is the final stage to what your product is going to be heard on.
Well, considering the multitude of everything that there is out there, for me, it's a sobering reminder that the basics are still the most important thing. So the basics being balance, and then balance within EQ. Equalization, of course, is balancing the frequencies. Still all balancing, right? So at the end of the day, when you have something voiced balanced perfectly, EQ-wise and level-wise, and if we talk about the EQ, we're really talking about voicing. That's a musical way to look at it. When something is voiced properly, which we see orchestrators spend hours making sure they have all the chords voiced perfectly, or smart musicians realizing how they're chording something, the kind of chord they're playing, where they're playing in the neck, how it relates to the key. That's what EQ is, effectively. It's making sure that that voicing comes real and is pushed out properly. When that's right and the balance is right, it will sound great on anything. That is how actually mixers started in the day. Many, many years ago, they were the ones that were able to, quote unquote, had the magic. Somehow their mix sounded great everywhere. Well, it was just as simple as balancing and proper equalization.
Yeah, I'd agree with that 100%. I mean, the consumer formats are such a moving target that there's no point in chasing them, I don't think. And I just try to make my mixes as good as I can. And again, not even necessarily from an audiophile quality. I mean, I've never been nominated for a Best Engineered Album, and I probably never will be. And I'm okay with that, because there will be people that say, man, that album was exciting. I mean, I think Metallic album is a perfect example of something from an audiophile perspective. I won the Loudness War. I mean, that was where that went. It was vilified from that perspective, but there are a lot of people who think it's a super exciting record. But if I also was taking into account what was going to happen on the consumer side while mixing, I would just be driving myself crazy, and I think making decisions that wouldn't hold up. That said, I'm also now very aware of what that chain is like from mastering through manufacturing, the current digital version of manufacturing. And there are lots of steps to take at that point, but it doesn't affect my process while making a record at all.
That's great. That's great. Dave, you want to add anything?
Look, for me, making records, it's very simple. Because of technology, it's very easy to listen to 100 records immediately, because you have iTunes open, or you can just import your favorite 10 songs of the week into your session, even just to kind of A/B where you're at. So for me, I'm constantly just listening to whatever's hot this week, whether it's on beatport.com or even iTunes Top 100 or whatever, and just A/Bing. That's really a lot what I'm doing. And after you make records for a few years, you figure things out. So you shouldn't be super off. Your mixes shouldn't be super off from what's hot, if you know what you're doing, or if you have some success, or just stay with it. But for me, it's really just about A/Bing stuff. It's so easy just to grab the hottest record that's out today, an hour ago, whatever. I mean, #1 record on iTunes. Pull it in your session, listen to it, and just check it out. Just perspective. For me, it's all about perspective. And you gain perspective by listening to as many things as you possibly can. You don't have to go drive around in your car anymore, for me anyways, because that's what I used to do, drive around in your car with a cassette tape of after I ran the mix. Today it's like an immediate export of audio, so it's very quick. Things are very quick today, and that's really helped what I do.
So you don't have like 15 different pairs of earbuds that you sell?
No, I don't.
Yeah, that's a common thing that I think a lot of viewers wonder what to use. Is there any particular headphone that you use for what you do?
For me, well, no, I don't. I mean, when I DJ, I use a couple different pairs of headphones, but I think it's important just to whether it's speakers or where you're working, or it's important to just listen on the same thing all the time, so you just know exactly how things sound. And these guys will tell you the same thing. You don't want to move from studio to studio. You want to just listen in the same place, get to know that room, get to know your speakers, and that's the best thing.
Well, great. Well, thanks, guys. Well, this has been quite the conversation, and I'd love to do it a little bit longer, but we're going to get to a part of the show that we really are looking forward to. We've had our crew backstage just scanning our blogosphere for all the questions that we're going to do. The social media team has some people waiting, and we're going to now turn it over to the audience. They're going to get to ask you anything that they want to ask you, audio related. So let's get to it.
Audio related.
Audio related. I had to be specific about that. Brett the General, he wants to know, ever since vinyl, it seems like we moved to a new audio format every decade or so, from 8-track to tape to CDs to MP3s. What do you guys think is next?
Well, I'll give my ignorant answer, and then Jack will give the very informed answer. I mean, look, there are a lot of reasons for the new format. Some of them are technological, and some of them are purely fiscal. Having a new consumer audio format is the holy grail for the record labels, because you will buy the records you've already bought again. So that is one of the reasons, and it's not purely cynical, but that is definitely something we're going towards. I think that we've seen in the last 10 years the formats are shifting based on technology almost exclusively, and I'm hoping that we're going to start to see a push that has more to do with actually listening to music and the consumer experience of listening to music, because we don't have the roadblocks of the bandwidth and storage that we've had until recently. So that's what I hope the next sort of little push is.
I would agree with that, and I'll just add that we're also on the very, very early dawn of technology intelligence. Some people call it artificial intelligence, but we're getting to the point now where there's going to be a lot of products coming out that actually are smart enough to know what the listening environment is and how loud the room is and what the sound of the room is, and whether it's sitting on a plastic table or a wood table. This is all the beginning of really the beginning of fantastic intelligent technology, and that's what I see definitely coming down the line, which is exciting. You'll be able to talk to the device, you'll be able to talk to you. It'll actually become one with you.
Hi, I'm just excited. Look, I think that when I started DJing, I was playing vinyl, and vinyl to me was a cool format. I was never super excited about MP3s. I think MP3s kind of came around because they took up less space on your hard drive, so it was much easier to sort of send MP3s around as opposed to waves or AIFs. And so I think that's really a big reason why the MP3 format came around, in my opinion. So I'd like to see, because of technology and we have so much more space, whether it's streaming or on your hard drive, I would just love to see the format change from MP3 back to something that, is supposed to anyways sound a little better. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Let me ask you something. How many of you guys want to see hard goods again?
As a label owner, I mean, my label is this big, but I mean, obviously for me, selling physical product is amazing. And I also, because we spend a lot of time on the artwork and things like that, so we love that. I love the physical aspect to that product, but it's also, I'm old, and I don't think that kids these days are as enamored of the physical side of it. Some are. Some get really into vinyl, but I think a lot of them are fine without it. So if we can keep making enough money to do this as a day job, I'm kind of okay with whatever the format is.
Holding something in your hand, I think, is exciting. I mean, again, he's talking about age, but I think any age. Look, you hold your phone all day long, right? So that just tells me people like to touch things, whether it's your phone or your iPad, or interact with things. So it'd be cool if we could figure out some way for people to not just listen to, music's just going all over the place in the air or, on the internet or whatever. And it'd be cool to kind of attach some kind of physicality to music again. I think that would be cool. I don't know what that is,
Well,
but
I think it's fair to say that it starts with the baby rattle. When you're very little, the first thing they hand you is the baby rattle. So that's the first tactile experience. I think the interaction, the gamification of the experience will be the next way of actually us having a tactile experience. That's what I'm looking forward to.
I think to go back to something Jack said at the beginning of the show, I think recreating a primary listening experience is the thing. In the 70s and 80s, every ultimate bachelor pad, it was based around the stereo.
That's right.
And that seems to have just started to come back now, where people actually are proud of having something that sounds good. And that's going to push audio formats, because you can't hide when you're on a good system.
all of us have pretty good stereos, I'm pretty sure. But it'd be kind of cool if every consumer had a cool stereo, right? Consumers, I don't think they have their iPhone or whatever. They have phones and they have, cars. But it'd be
There are a
cool.
lot of people who stick their iPhone in like a paper cup to make it louder.
That's
and,
right.
But
Let's
but
get
that
those
is
stereo speakers. Remember, it's like every bachelor had the big set of speakers in their living room.
Yeah.
We need to get back to that. Come on.
Yeah, I think that's part of the technology age, though. It's whatever time and budget can afford, and we've got so much time pushed into things because we can carry our stuff with us that it's easier to put your phone in a dock.
It's about mobility.
Yeah.
And that's why docking systems never really worked 100%, because why would you tether a mobile device to real estate? That doesn't make any sense. It's about going with you. It's on the go, right? So I think that's always been kind of an issue. But we got to remember that industrial design drives a lot of this. So how cheap can it be? How small can it be? How light can it be? What's the battery life? That's what they're looking at. Audio, unfortunately, in most of these manufacturers, I don't want to say it, does not matter. And it's all proven for them on data, but they've asked the data incorrectly, in my opinion. That's a whole nother story.
It's a longer show. Next question. 8-Ball Boris.
That's his real name.
That's the 8-Ball Boris. Reference tracks are mastered. What should you listen to when using references while mixing?
References while you're mixing is a very dangerous thing if you don't know what you're doing, 100%. I had a couple of real good teachers that taught me how to do it. Again, that's another lengthy conversation, but you could find yourself chasing, bass or bottom end or the sound of a voice or how loud a voice is, and that's not really the way to do it. The way to do it is you listen to the piece of music, you listen to what it is, and you give it what it should be. And it has to be its own thing. Here's the truth. If we went on iTunes right now and needle dropped the top 25, one's going to be loud, one's going to be quiet, one's going to be bright, one's going to be dark. One's going to have a lot of voice, one's going to have a lot of bass, one's going to have this, no drums, too many drums, too much reverb, too much delay. Which one's right? They're all right. Actually, every one of them are right, is the truth. So you have to approach it as its own piece of music of what it is, in my opinion.
I think that question is kind of directed to what I was saying. But, he's right. But my school, basically, we're making records that are mastered. I don't need mastering guy to touch whatever I deliver. That's because, first of all, because it's what I deliver is probably going up somewhere today. And second of all, I just don't trust a lot of mastering people. But with technology and the way people are making records, or a lot of the youth anyways, on laptops, what you end up producing on your laptop, whether you're using whatever DAW you're using, it should sound mastered, in my opinion. So what I said earlier, just listening to records you like, and they're all, just like he said, nobody's correct, but you're just listening to perspective, just to see, okay, that one sounds like this. You're not trying to copy another record, because a lot of people are actually, there's this new kind of trend looking at EQ and sort of copying EQ using a couple plugins, which is like this new thing going on, which is funny because it's just like it's not really, it's like so crazy. Bootlegging somebody's EQ, what does that have, that's going to make your song sound exactly like another song? No. But I still think that a lot of people in my genre making music, they're delivering mastered records. So I still believe that you can just still pop in records and A/B.
We're really all delivering pop, rock, country, whatever it is. We're all really all delivering a master source. So maybe I should just add to what I said, that we should look at it as references. That's the way our minds work. Something's on the left because something's right, something's black because something's white, something's close because something's far. Our brains work that way. So as references, fantastic. But to actually chase something and A/B back and forth for 5 hours on a bass drum sound is like lunacy.
Yeah, the reference is just to educate yourself.
Yeah.
And I think I don't do this because it's not the way I work and it doesn't make sense. But I think the only reason to ever listen to something other than what you're working on is because you need a break and you've got to refresh your perspective. For me, I ask my wife to come in and listen because there's nothing like having someone else come in the room to make you realize it sucks. And you can answer the question yourself at that point. But yeah, you need to keep your perspective fresh while you're working. But I definitely agree that if you start chasing, there's no way to make everything even enough between your mix and a reference to then focus in on what the kick drum's doing. There's too much other stuff that's different.
Yeah, I think also what happens too, we have a large community, and Jack and I were talking about this a little earlier, of all different education levels participating. So sometimes reverse engineering someone's EQ is the way that they actually teach themselves sensitivity to finding the mid-range and finding that zone that they can focus in on to get to that point.
But that only works if once you do it, all you pay attention to is what comes out of the speakers and decide whether you like that better or worse and whether it works with all the other elements. It can be an amazing teaching tool, but it's not.
It's not the end all. It's not the end all, but many people bump into it.
It's not an answer. People are looking for an answer. It's not the answer.
Yeah.
But for sure, it's a tool.
Yeah. Great. Our next question is coming to us from Rich Goyette. If you were opening a new studio and starting from scratch, what gear would you spend the first $2,500 on? So the most important startup gear outside of facilities, computers, and DAW.
Well, are we recording or are we mixing?
Rich Goyette didn't say that. He didn't ask that.
That's tough.
Say both.
Say both.
Say both?
You got $2,500 burning a hole in your
He's
pocket.
opening a studio. He's going to do everything.
Right.
You need one good mic pre, and you need good speakers.
All for $2,500? Good luck.
That's going to be really tough. But I mean, you could actually do it. You could do it.
What's the first thing out of those three, though? Maybe, I'd say speakers, obviously. You can't do anything without speakers.
If you can't hear what you're doing, you can't work.
Right.
So, yeah, I'd definitely go speakers.
You go speakers. Jack, what about you?
Speakers.
Speakers.
And he was probably
Speakers,
looking
and
for
then
model numbers, but I don't know.
Speakers, then find a good intro mic, like if you don't have any money, an SM57 or 58, or if you have a little bit of money, AKG 414 or something that can do everything if it has to, or something, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What's the second thing after speakers? And you had a little bit of money left.
Oh, it's got to be microphone. I mean, any weak link in the chain will kill the chain, but if you start off bad, then you can't go anywhere. And I think there's a misperception that you have to spend a ton of money to get a great mic. I mean, there are obviously $25,000 microphones that are better for some jobs and other things, but there are much cheaper mics that are better all-round mics anyway. I mean, there are tons of records, including Thriller, that the SM7 was the vocal mic. Mm-hmm. So that's $300 new and sounds amazing.
I love that mic.
Mm-hmm. And other than the fact that it's a really tight pickup pattern, you can do a lot of stuff with that mic. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. And just one good clean mic pre, and don't bother with a compressor and EQ. If you're just starting, you'll just get yourself in trouble anyway. Move the mic until it sounds good, and you'll learn so much that when you actually can afford more gear, you'll really know what you want to do, I would say.
So it sounds like one of the things would be to spend more time on learning the gear that you purchase and being able to not focus on the compression issues and some of the other stuff.
Limitations are some of the best things you can do creatively.
That's good.
In any way, limiting yourself to a number of tracks, limiting yourself to a number of pieces of gear, limiting yourself to 0 plugins on a mix, whatever. Giving yourself 25 minutes to do something, anything like that.
Oh, some of the best things happen in a short amount of time. I'd say if, just to take that question just one last step, if you weren't necessarily going to record anything and you're just going to make some music or mix some music, I'd say for me, it'd be important to make your room sound good, which isn't cheap either at all, but anything you can do to sort of make your listening position sound good, so, because obviously if you have issues, low-end issues are the biggest ones usually. That's gonna you're not gonna.
There are a lot of really cheap solutions to things like mattresses and carpets and stuff.
Yeah.
So just search the web and you'll find a million.
But that's an
things.
important thing, I think. If you're
definitely.
if you don't need a microphone, for instance, I think it's important to make your
And a lava lamp.
place and a lava lamp.
No
Huge.
studio is complete without a lava lamp.
And blacklight posters. Yeah. Next question. I guess it's producer Javi Beats. Which ones would be your most popular Waves plugins and for what purpose? So each of you, what is your
You can't pick your own, Jack.
Can't pick your own.
But I can pick my own.
You can't pick your own
No, I
either.
can't.
So we'll let you guys. Since I don't own a plugin, why don't we hear what these guys have to?
Well, you should start then.
I should start.
Yeah.
But can I pick your guys' plugins?
Of course.
No.
You know, just for fun, I'm going to say the H delay because I use it every day, all day long. Just for fun. Just a good, solid delay. I don't know. Number one, Jack?
Tough, really tough. I'm going through the suite in my mind right now. There's quite a few that I really like. You know, and you also go through phases.
Yeah.
Audio tracks, I think, is fantastic. But I don't know if I'd say that's my number one choice. You know, I think the C1 is amazing. L1, you know, it's a standard. It's like an SM57 that will always be around. It's just insanely great. Every time I revisit it, I'm like, oh my God, I forgot about how great this thing is. Why am I using this and that? L1, you know, standard. So it's tough. There's a lot of really good plugins, frankly.
Yeah. I guess, wow, that is tough. Because, I mean, you know, what am I using it on? But I love Renaissance bass more than Max bass, even though you have fewer controls on it. And Metaflanger, I love. Don't get to use it as often as I'd like.
I'm going to change mine to the L3. Forget the delay. Forget the delay.
And only because it's now 30 seconds later. And
not the L3, L2. Sorry, L2.
Can't change your answers.
I like all the L's.
Okay, cool. Our next question comes to us from, we're waiting for our magic screen. Studio Macondo. Is digital clipping really that bad? I tuned to a CFA with bass and guitar. So are they, and they still sound musical even when they're clipping.
Well, you know, there are a million different kinds of clipping, and I guess hardcore digital clipping, unless you're using it for an effect, could be bad because it's kind of the harshest, nastiest one, and it's unrecoverable and things like that. But I'm a huge fan of clipping.
But not digital clipping, maybe analog.
Sometimes I've gotten some pretty badass guitar tones through overdriving A to Ds, though. So I don't know. It's definitely not all bad. I mean, like with anything, if it works, it works.
In moderation.
In moderation. Yeah.
Yeah, don't clip every channel on your mix just because that's the sound you're going for.
You're going to have a whole record full of clipping, right? Jack?
Well, historically, we've always been handed tools that sometimes we've had the ability to have an effect on with the whoever's designing the product. Sometimes we can say, can you do this or do that? But generally, we're handed the tools to work with, and lots of times we actually manipulate them and do things we're not supposed to do, right? Yeah. But that's part of the artistic creation, is taking something and doing something you're not supposed to do. It's not that we don't understand headroom, It's not that we don't understand what it's supposed to be. And that kind of harkens back to some of the things we've said earlier. When you truly understand technique or have a list of technique, you can take any particular device and make it do millions of different things. And that is, to me, the gold rush. When you have the ability to look at 1176 and say, I can take this compressor and I can make her do 1 million different things. That's what matters to me. I love having those kinds of techniques and being able to manipulate the particular device, whatever it might be, to create something that's cool.
Yeah, and I mean, to go back to the question, if the clipping sounds good to you, then you should go with it. The only caveat to that is that if you're the only one it sounds good to, then you should probably adjust your taste and not do it as much.
Use your ears, not your eyes. Listen, the last thing I do when I'm done with a mix, and I'm using Pro Tools, but the last thing I do is I push my master fader 6 dB. And you're not really supposed to do that. Once I get as loud as I possibly can, so I'm basically using Pro Tools, master fader distortion it's part of my sound. And a lot of people probably wouldn't say that's the right thing to do, but I've been doing it for a couple of years and it's been working for me.
That's great. That's great. Okay, our next question comes to us from Ben Cross. Hey, Andrew. I'm the studio manager at Florida Atlantic University. When picking interns for studio work and mixing, what traits or qualities do you look for the most? Have a great day.
I am having a great day. Thanks, Ben. Well, for me, and the ability to use the gear and know the software, that's a given. Everybody knows how to do that. And obviously some people are better at it than others, but that's actually one of the least important things. The ability to read a situation, to know when to be quiet, to anticipate what's going on in the room is by far the most important thing. It's all about personality for me. And you can tell in seconds. It's all very intangible, but when you're talking to somebody, you know immediately if you could stand to have that person sitting in the room with you. And I'm actually not the best person to ask. I've had one intern in my entire career, and I've had my own studio for 20 years now. So I have a really hard time finding people that I can
fit the mold.
Yeah.
That you trust or that you just want to work with?
Yeah, that I will let on the property. No.
Yeah. The shotgun comes out.
I think my workflow has gotten so kind of introverted in a way that I almost feel bad when I have someone in the room with me because I am doing nothing for them. They're probably not learning a whole lot. I'm not explaining anything. And it may seem as though I'm not really doing anything, but 2 hours later, a lot got done. So part of it is me just not feeling as though I can support what an intern should get out of interning. And the other part is that I'm so self-contained that it would take twice as long to ask somebody else to do it for me. So
That's a good reason not to have an intern.
yeah, so sorry.
You do everything yourself. I think that's the hardest part.
You have an intern?
Well, I mean, I've had interns, and I think that they, when interns come to work for you, I think they immediately think they're going to magically learn a bunch of stuff, and then they're going to start basically engineering for you. And it's like, well, that's kind of why I'm here. That's what I've done for 20 years or however long, and that's my job. So, I think a lot of us in this business are we're here for a reason. It's probably because we like to do everything. I don't know about these guys, but it's just hard. These guys think they're going to come in and be a second engineer. What's a second engineer? I mean, are they going to just go record vocals for me in the other room while I'm doing something else? No, because I probably want to do that too, because I'm a control freak, and I think most producer engineers have a lot of control issues. So it's hard. And like he said, it's hard. You have to be explaining stuff the whole time you're doing stuff, and that's not working, is it?
I get it. Jack?
I have an opposite perspective than either one. I've had quite a few, actually, in my life, and I really actually enjoy talking to them and showing them things. What I've discovered is lots of times when people ask you questions and you're forced, in a sense, or you desire to answer, you hear yourself say things that you didn't know you thought. When you have a lot of experience, you're running, a lot of it's just sort of secondary. It's like chewing gum. You don't think about it. And then when you're questioned and you explain it, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I thought A, B, and C. And that night driving home, you're like, okay, you know what? Here's how I can make A, B, and C better. Now that I'm aware that I do that, I actually could make this better. So I see that the imparting of the information actually comes back to you in a beautiful way. And I also love the fact that I have 4 different people that have worked for me that have graduated and gone on to be successful. Makes me feel like I've really changed people's lives, and it's much greater than just the record I was making. So actually, I love that. I love the teaching. I love spending the time. I look at it like exchanging baseball cards, effectively. And then they tell me things like, well, you know, gee, I was on another session and I saw this and saw that. Really, what did that person do? They did that? Great. That's a cool idea. Well, let's try it and let's do our own way of doing it. And it's been really fantastic for me. That's just how it's worked for me. It's my personality, I think, that allows that to happen.
Well, I love the teaching, like at the Mix with Masters seminars and things like that, and I teach at UCLA sometimes, but I have to, for me, I guess I just have to compartmentalize it.
I have such a romantic view of the record-making process. I so much love the romantic, the chase, the beauty, the sex. Everything about it is so fantastic. You know, I'm just so in love with it. That the idea of sharing it with other people in the room and talking about, well, we could do this, we could do that. Well, have you thought about that? No, it's not a stupid idea. It's actually a cool idea. Let's try this, let's try that. I love that. The chase. That's the beauty to me. So again, I think it's just my personality. I mean, obviously, you're a great teacher and you've done beautiful work, you know, for Mix at the Masters and other situations.
But not while I'm mixing.
But see, that's just your personality.
Yeah.
You know, there's no right or wrong here. I just personally like it, but that's just me.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do too with trust with interns, especially with the large advent of home recording situations. One of the biggest opportunities people have to intern now is probably going to be in someone's home before it might be in a large format studio. So another issue is just trust and the ability to have somebody in your private environment and do the things that they're required to do without necessarily bringing their other dreams and aspirations in. Because intern is a level of service. It's the first entry level of service. And I think it's just real important that they had that mindset in place. And sometimes that's hard to find, you know.
I think we should say before we leave this question, detail. You know, when I meet somebody, they have to have tenacity. Like it's got to be the most important thing. And they have to have insane detail. Very careful watching everything that's happening in the room. What is everyone saying? What's going on? What do I need to do? What's the next step? You know, what is the detail? Write down everything perfectly. Know exactly everything that's going on. It's imperative.
Yeah.
If they don't have the detail and tenacity, not interested.
It's also important, I think, for a lot of interns, whenever I do have interns come in, to know what they want to do. You know, understandably, when you're young, you know, you're kind of figuring things out. You don't know if you want to go into live sound, recording, live recording. There's a million things, film, TV. But it's also important that you kind of have an idea right this second what you want to do. Today I want to be a producer or a DJ or a remixer or whatever. So it's important not just, oh, I just thought it'd be cool to come, you know, work with you and just see what you do. I want to look over your shoulder for a couple hours. No, that's not what I'm interested in, having people come work for me that want to do what I do.
That's true.
So that's important too. I bet you this person that just asked the question probably would like Andrew's email. Can we give it to him?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably.
I'm easy to find.
Yeah, we've got one more question. This is our final question from Q&A. So this comes to us from BT Queden. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Regarding MP3s and other lossy digital compression formats, how important is audio quality for today's consumers? Jack, let's start with you.
I don't even want to touch this question because whether it's 320 or 128, none of that matters to me. I understand what lossless is. It's such a bigger answer that I don't want to actually disrespect it by trying to answer it in 5 seconds. So I'm going to move on. I'll let you do it.
Well,
he's passing.
I'll just say just a small part of it is, yeah, I think, you know, quibbling over the bit rate of different lossy encoders. When you're in a room and you're doing actual blind A/B tests, that matters a lot. When you get out into the wild of what people are actually going to listen to on those formats, it doesn't matter quite as much. I think the idea that the CD at 44:116 is the holy grail of audio now, and we're just trying to get back to that, is a bizarre concept to me. And I think it really goes to what we were saying before. the better systems that consumers listen to music on, the more important audio quality will be. I've been lucky enough to go to some car manufacturers and check out their stereos as they're designing the cars, and we're EQing and compressing and doing all this inside the car, and they're really making these cars sound amazing, to the point where listening to MP3s in that car is a real drag. You really start to uncover all the problems with them, pop on a WAV file in that same car and oh, okay, this sounds great. So the audio quality will kind of take care of itself a little bit once the playback systems get better, I think.
If there's an awareness that people think that the sound matters.
Exactly. But I
That's where
think
it
that the
starts.
success of some of the, not even audiophile quality, but even systems like Sonos, which is still wireless and very convenient, and digital, but they spend a ton of time on how it sounds, and all of the Max Audio going into consumer products so that a laptop actually has some time spent on what it sounds like. That, again, will up the bar for how good the file has to be.
It's a good start, anyways.
Yes, it is bait, but we're, like you said, we're right at the very beginning of this.
That's cool. Well, thanks, guys. We've gotten to that part of the show that we like to call "What's Your Audio Level?" As we've been telling you leading up to this, one very lucky viewer is going to win a Dell XPS 13 laptop with Max Audio. So before I tell you how that's going to happen, Jack, can you tell us a little bit more about the Dell Max Audio connection?
Sure. Waves Audio, obviously, in my opinion, owns the professional world. They make absolutely the best plugins, period. Undisputable, my opinion. They've gone now that they've owned the recording studios, broadcast, film, they've now gone on to nailing the live community, which they've absolutely nailed. And now we're going after consumer. And so what Max Audio effectively is a suite of many, many different compressors and equalizers and imaging products, like the S1 that we have in the professional world. So we've just taken a lot of the products that were designed in the pro world and redefined them, repurposed them, urban mined them, cracked them, changed them, and applied them to the consumer world so that when you listen to something on a consumer device, it has hopefully something close to what the original people wanted to create. And who would know better than the people who actually make the devices that you actually do use to create, right? So we're the perfect people to do it. And we're slowly but surely now gaining a tremendous amount of traction. So Max Audio is exactly just that. It deals with the fact that we have a problem with small form factors, poor transducers, right? Poor amplifiers and all these things that are in consumer electronics, because again, it's so driven by industrial design, ID, that they're giving us form factors that are almost impossible to make sound great. So we're using a smart DSP that came again from the pro world, right, and applying it into the consumer world and taking something that shouldn't sound great, that actually all of a sudden sounds, has bass, has treble, sounds beautiful, plays loud, has width, all the things that we want to create a real premium experience for the consumer.
That's great, thanks. Well, now that you know what the computer is all about, here's how the contest is going to work. Everyone who registered for the show was entered into a sweepstakes to appear live on Everything Audio via Google Hangout and compete in an audio trivia lightning round. Those viewers have been chosen and are waiting on standby right now, so they're going to join us. Let's bring them in. We have Johnny Barber and Simon Leon. Johnny,
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Hey, how you doing? Johnny, where are you from?
doing? I'm from Vicksburg, Mississippi.
Vicksburg, Mississippi. And Simon, where are you from?
Manchester, UK.
All right. Welcome to Everything Audio. And this is your
Nice to have you,
shot
guys.
at the Dell XPS 13. Are you ready to do this?
Yeah. You ready?
Great. Here's the rules. Each of you will receive 60 seconds to answer 12 audio trivia questions correctly. There's no penalty for wrong answers, and if you don't know the correct answer, just say pass, and we'll move on to the next question. If we've gotten through all 15 questions and you used up all your passes, we'll go back to the previous questions that you passed on and give you more time to try and see how many that you can answer correctly. The person with the most answered questions correctly will win the Dell Ultrabook. If there is a tie, we will go to sudden death. Each round, those contestants will have 20 seconds to answer one more question correctly. We'll go back and forth until one person answers correctly and the other one doesn't. There are no passes in sudden death round. As simple as that is, are you guys ready?
Ready? Yes.
Johnny, you're first up.
Okay.
Let's begin. What is the sample and bit rate standard for CD audio?
1644.1.
Correct. What is the exact preamp and EQ that Waves modeled in collaboration with Andrew Scheps?
The Neve 1073.
Correct. Who invented the phonograph?
Pass.
What is the name of the Waves technology found in the Adele Ultrabook that we're giving away?
The Max Audio.
Correct. How many Billboard #1 dance singles does Dave Audé have?
I'm sorry, Dave. Pass.
What's the name of the effect that Peter Frampton made famous with 2 of his biggest hits?
Pass.
Name 3 types of digital audio cables.
Digital audio cables. Well, XLR.
Time's up. I'm going to let you finish answering.
XLR, a quarter jack, and a. That's what I can get right now.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. You got 3 correct answers.
Okay.
Simon, are you ready?
Oh, that was tough, but I'll have a go.
Are you ready, man?
Yes.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm okay. Let's go.
You're getting pussy now. Okay. Let's go, Simon. We're ready to go. And what are the 2 standard types of guitar amps?
Pass. I'll come back to that.
Name one of the 2 pieces of hardware that Waves modeled in collaboration with Jack Joseph Puig. We're looking for the original names here.
Oh, pass. I didn't hear that.
Next question. Which 2 companies invented the compact disc?
Sony and Philip.
Correct.
Yes.
For which singer was automatic double tracking invented?
Elvis.
No, I'm sorry, that's wrong.
Okay, go.
Next question.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay. Name 2 analog video formats that were available in consumer video recorders and playback machines.
Betamax, VHS.
Correct. Name 3 types of waveforms used in analog synthesis. You can answer this question. 3 types of waveforms used in analog
Sine
synthesis.
wave, sine square, triangle.
Yes. We have a tie. Oh my gosh. You know what that means, ladies and gentlemen. Sudden death. Sudden
Good luck,
death.
Johnny.
Are you guys ready for sudden death?
I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay. Simon, let's start with you. Name 3 vinyl record speeds.
33, 45, 78.
That's right. Okay.
RPM.
Next question goes to Johnny. What does EP stand for?
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't
I'm
think
sorry.
of it
I'm
off
sorry. Simon, you just won Adele Ultrabook.
Woo! How much?
Congratulations,
Sorry,
man. It's well-deserved prize.
Thanks, guys. Awesome.
That answer was extended play.
Yeah, man.
Extended play. EP stands for extended play.
Thanks.
Almost there, man.
I know.
Yeah. Well, we're going to say goodbye now. When you go offline, Simon, our production team will take care of you and tell you the details about how you get your new Adele Ultrabook from Waves with Max Audio. To wrap things up, I'd like to ask all my questions, all my guests these questions, and I'd like to stop reading off that thing. What I really want to know, and this is to each of you, and just off the top of your head, if you were not doing what you do, what would you be doing? If you were not doing audio, we know how well that you do that. Andrew, Jack, and Dave, what would you be doing?
Well, I've actually had 24 hours to think about this, and it's really hard to answer. I'm so in love with what I do that it's hard to imagine doing something else. I think it would either be something else that was creative or teaching, because I love doing that.
That's great. That's great.
For me, it'd be fashion, fashion or lighting. I love fashion and I love lighting.
That's great.
There's very much what we do, really, in a lot of ways.
Colors.
The correlation, yeah, there's a lot of correlation.
If I think your question means if I wasn't able to support myself doing what I'm doing, so that's how I'm taking it.
Don't take it like
and
that.
the answer is going to be I would be doing whatever I possibly could do to do what I'm doing now. So if that meant no sleep and 10 jobs and emptying trash in studios, that's what I would be doing.
Okay.
Whatever I could possibly do.
Well, that's cool. Well, thank each of you for your answers. We appreciate it. And thanks for being here today. This is really special for us and for all the viewers. Today, we had a chance to hear from some of the top creative talents in the game, their inspirations and revelations on quality audio, and why what they do so well. I also asked each one of them a question. What would you do if you didn't do this profession? I feel that inside of each of their answers, however varied, holds a larger truth. And that's what makes their work stand out. As we say goodbye for today, my hope is that you leave our show learning not only the importance of quality audio, but the necessity for quality people as well. I'd like to thank all of the Waves family and our guests today, and our crew and staff here at the facility. And until next time, I'm Dave Hampton, and thanks for joining us on Everything Audio.